afternoon, everyone. I am so glad that you are here, so glad to be with you, and so glad to be with our partners, Lisa Welch at SBA, Samalit Hogan at the MSBDC. We're hosting this webinar in partnership with SBA and as part of a group called the Western Mass Means Business Collaboration. So I'm going to share a quick video with you that tells you a bit about us. One moment.
Looks like you need to share the sound, Michelle.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay. Just click on the share button and then just click on sound.
All right. Ah, look at that. Thank you. How long have we been in quarantine? I don't have this together yet. Okay, here we go. Take two. Thank you, Samalit. Hi, I'm Michelle Miller with the Center for Women in Enterprise, or CWE. We serve the state of Massachusetts and approach business from a feminist perspective. With free workshops and consultations, we're here to help you launch, grow, and certify your business. We look forward to working with you.
Hi, my name is Emil Forgio. I'm the Business Assistant Coordinator at Common Capital. Common Capital is a SBA microlender and a community development financial institution. We make loans to small businesses in Western Mass in a range of $1,000 to $300,000, and we provide a free business assistant to our borrowers.
I'm Amy Shapiro, Business Development Director with the Franklin County Community Development Corporation, serving Western Mass businesses to start, stabilize, grow through counseling, business lending, and home to the shared use Western Mass Food Processing Center. We help you evaluate assumptions to minimize risk with counseling, capital, and connections.
Hi, my name is Samalit Hogan, and I work for the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center Network. Our mission is to help assisting business owners and new entrepreneurs achieve their goals of owning profitable and sustainable businesses. We can assist you with cash flow analysis, personnel, and organizational issues, as well as business planning, marketing, international trade, and government procurement. Asistencia en español y otros idiomas está disponible.
SCORE is a 50-year-old nonprofit volunteer organization. We provide free one-on-one mentoring to small business entrepreneurs to help them start, sustain, grow, and exit their businesses. Our 53 experienced volunteers have helped our clients to start thousands of businesses and add many thousands of jobs all over Western Massachusetts.
Hi, my name is Dee Dice with Valley Community Development, and we're a one-stop resource for all things for small business. We offer one-to-one assistance, workshops, training, and we have access to a huge amount of resources, all for free. So no matter what your business stage is, know that we've been there and we can be there for you.
Thank you all for joining us for that. We are also here in celebration of Women's History Month. So happy Women's History Month to everyone. In honor of that, we're holding a mini series of workshops that we're chatting about different items related to women in business, including today's webinar, which talks a little bit about certification. From an intro level, what is certification? How do you know if you're ready for it, or if it's even the right fit for you, and what's out there to help you if it is? If you are ready to learn more about certification, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have another webinar that gets into some of the details of applying for one of the many women-owned certifications. So do join us for that. We will, after this, we'll send you the link to the recording as well as the link to register for that workshop if you would like to join us for it. So at this point, I would love, Samalit, if you have any additional information you'd like to share as by means of introduction, please go for it. Then I'll pass it to Lisa to introduce herself.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for having me here today. I think, part of the introduction was done at the video, but I'll do a quick one real quick. Regional Director of the Small Business Development Center here in Springfield, Samalit Hogan. We cover Hampden, Hampshire, and Franklin County here in Western Mass. However, the Small Business Development Center network has offices all throughout the state, and I'll put the website link on the chat so you can always check with the closest office nearest to you for one-on-one confidential free advisory services. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Samalid. And Lisa, take it away.
Sure.
Oh, I lost Lisa for a second. A minute.
It's normal with Zoom. We get frozen from time to time.
It happens. And my internet at least has been real cranky lately. So maybe just going around. Thank you, Samala, for putting the link in the chat for MSBDC. I will add CWEs in there. And I'm trying to see, I thought I could share a file with you all, but it doesn't seem to want me to put it in the chat. So while we wait for Lisa, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Which file?
I was going to try to share that acronym.
Oh, I have it. I'll put it up.
Nice. Thank you. Excellent. So while we wait for Lisa to rejoin us, Lisa is with the Small Business Administration, the Massachusetts District Office. Both the MSBDC and CWE, Samalids in my respective organizations, are resource partners of SBA, and we all work together to help make sure that you have everything you need to start and grow a business. So a couple of things that we'd love to share with you by means of introduction before we get into some of the meat of this is, one, you'll see this document that Samalid is sharing. I've kind of put it together, but it's part of, she incorporated it into a really amazing article, and I'm sticking a link to that article in the chat because I find that that's a really helpful way to digest in another way some of the information that Samalid and I will be sharing with you over the next hour. So that link's in the chat. Feel free to open it. If you scroll down, you will see what Samalid's currently showing you on her screen, which is just for reference. As we're talking today, and if you join us again in a couple of weeks, really anytime you're talking about certifications, feel free to reference that. It starts to feel like you're swimming in a bowl of alphabet soup real quick. So we're hopeful that that acronym file will be helpful to you. Also, everyone here today registered via eCenter Direct, which is our registration system at CWE. So I'm going to put this file as well as the link to Samalid's article in eCenter Direct. So that way at the end of this webinar, we'll mark you all as attended, and then you will be able to log in and see that file. We'll include a link to the recording there as well. And we've got a question about whether we can email the links. We absolutely can. Just be sure that the email that you registered with, that you check that regularly. That's going to be where it goes. So sometimes they land in spam. Just keep an eye out for that. But if you don't see it, Samalid has wonderfully offered to help us get this video edited. It is being recorded. So once that is all spiffed up, we will send it out to you. Okay. So it doesn't look like Lisa's back with us yet. So
I'm here.
You are.
I am. I can't, for some reason, I can't share my video, but that's okay. I apologize. I got zoomed out. So let me just do a quick introduction. My name is Lisa Gonzalez-Welch. I am with the Massachusetts Small Business Administration, SBA office. I am one of a team of 12 there. In the Small Business Administration, we are a federal agency with the mission to help start and grow businesses by providing technical assistance through counseling and training, access to capital through SBA-backed loans, helping you grow your business by perhaps exporting your product or maybe getting into the procurement arena and getting some contracts and subcontracts as a ways of growing your business. Very fortunate to be working with an amazing resource partners team, which is part of our SBA family, and happy to be here with Michelle and Samalid and all of you to share what resources might be of help to you, and maybe if you've thought about growing your business through contracting opportunities. So thank you for taking the time to join us, and happy Women's History Month.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, so Samal and I are going to tag team this next section, which is we're going to chat a little bit about the world of certifications, how our organizations can help. Do have that link that we sent with that LinkedIn open down to those acronyms. I think you'll find that helpful as we chat through. So I'll start a little bit with an overview of the world of certification. What are we talking about? And then Samalid and I will tag team what contracting means, what it can entail, how to know if you're ready for certification, and what's out there to help you. We are monitoring that chat box, so please do feel, oh, and it looks like Pamela's got her hand up. Sorry, so I will pause to see if Pamela's got a question. Pamela, feel free to put your question in the chat, or if you would like us to unmute you, we can do that in a moment. Everybody else, please do feel free to use that chat box liberally. We're watching that. I'm also watching that Q&A box, as I think Samala is too. So we'll pause for questions, but our goal today is to just give you some information about what the certification world looks like, which is where I will start. A lot of times folks come with questions around women-owned certification. And what I always hope that folks take away is the main purpose of certification. What is certification? Certification is effectively a stamp that goes on your business that guarantees that you're at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled by a member of a historically disadvantaged population. That's a pretty big bucket. Women are in there. Also, people with disabilities are in there. Also, members of the LGBTQIA community are in there, members of the BIPOC community. There are different certifications that can help to identify a business as being at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled as a member of a historically disadvantaged population. How does that impact you? Well, it impacts you if you get to a point with your business where you want to consider bidding on contracts, whether that be looking for a cleaning contract with a new company that just moved into your town, or if that is you make beautiful scarves and you're hoping to sell them to Target or a similar large corporation. When it comes to certifications, you can think about it in two buckets. We got the public sector bucket and we got the private sector bucket, because it's mainly used when you're looking at contracting opportunities. So the public sector bucket actually breaks down. You've got federal level contracting opportunities, you've got state level contracting opportunities, and municipal level contracting opportunities. On the private sector side, we're chatting about corporations. So depending on where you want to do business, that is going to answer a question of which certification you might want to pursue. As I mentioned, a primary benefit of certification is giving you a possible advantage on contracting opportunities. So if you are earlier stage in your business, or if you're really looking at it from a marketing perspective, we may want to chat about something other than certifications to start. So Samalid, would you like to chat a bit about what contracting can mean, what it can entail?
Yes, of course. So basically, there, as Michelle mentioned, there's different agencies that offer contracts to small businesses. And a contract is, a specific bundle of services, goods or services that you're going to offer for a certain period of time. And there's a written agreement that specifically lays out everything that is expected of you as the service provider, or the good, the business that's providing the goods and services, and everything that your client, who might be a government agency, a city or town, or even a corporation, is expected of you. And so many times what happens is that, especially those corporations or even government entities that have government funding, they have set asides in their contracts. So there's a couple of things happening here. Number one, if you're doing business with a private business, it's a contract between you and that business. And then knowing that you're a woman certified, woman owned, minority owned, veteran owned, LGBT owned, or whatever other type of certification you might have, just give you like a little bit of advantage over a competitor, because they feel good about doing business, supporting diversity and inclusiveness in business. So that's when it's a corporation. When you have government contracts that are given to entities like large corporations, sometimes those government contracts come with set-asides or requirements for a specific percentage of their contract to be spent on, or given to woman-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned, those type of businesses. And they're very specific in that contract. Then, so that's where is your opportunity to meet with some of those contractors who already have those large contracts, to be able to provide a portion of those goods and services. There's also an opportunity for you to offer direct goods and services to the government or to a particular entity. And those are listed through a platform here in Massachusetts. It's called Combis. And so in Combis, there is a database of all of the bidding opportunities or the contracts that are available. And you have the opportunity to register yourself and search that database and be able to apply to provide those goods and services. Oftentimes they ask you for lots of information about your company. You would upload your certificate, as a minority-owned, woman-owned, veteran-owned, whichever certificate you have, insurance certificates, and be able to provide a whole comprehensive company profile, as well as how you'll be able to satisfy the goods and services that particular agency is asking for. So that's in a nutshell a little bit how the contracts work in the private sector and in the public sector.
Excellent, thank you. And while you were doing that, I was just doing a couple of questions in the chat. Someone mentioned wanting to see some examples of contracts. So what I actually did is I put a link in there to the Combis system that Samalid was just talking about that has a list of currently active contracts. So that's a helpful place to take a look at what some of these might look like. Another question that I'm seeing in the chat is type of business. Type of business really doesn't matter. If you're a sole proprietorship, LLC, corporation, anyone can get certified. The thing is, though, that you have to be at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled by the member of the historically disadvantaged group that you're going after, right? So in this case, we're talking largely about women-owned certifications. You need to make sure that either one or a group of women control at least 51% of the company. Attorneys are really helpful here. They are worth their weight in gold when it comes to setting up your company in such a way that you are indeed owned, operated, and controlled if you have men and women that control parts of the company. So just keep that in mind. There are a couple of questions in the chat about that I think would be helpful for Samalid and I to go back a little bit to the buckets that certifications can fall into, because some of the questions that folks are asking depend on the type of certification you're going after, right? So remember, we're talking about public sector buckets and we're talking about private sector buckets. And everybody has their own certifications for women-owned businesses and otherwise, right? That keeps things cute. On the private sector side, women-owned certification is handled through a third-party certifier. What does that mean? That means somebody else comes in, interviews you, looks at all of your paperwork, makes sure that you are indeed owned, operated, and controlled by—
They actually do an interview. They interview you.
Yeah, do an interview, exactly, to just verify the information in your application. That is what's called WBENC, W-B-E-N-C. I'm going to stick it in the chat.
Yeah. And when you're doing that, someone asked, why would you want to be labeled as woman-owned, as it means it's a minority? And so the whole point of getting some of these certifications, as we mentioned before, is that there are often set-asides or percentages of larger contracts that are specifically earmarked to be spent on companies that are woman-owned, veteran-owned, or have some type of minority certification. And that's why you would want to get a certification. But it all depends on who your customers are, what kind of goods and services you're providing. If this is all business to business also, you have to understand that. So you probably don't need a certification or want it if you are providing goods and services directly to individuals. This is for companies or businesses who are thinking of providing or are able to provide goods and services to other businesses and larger government entities. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. And that's such an important point of clarification. A lot of times folks, when they're thinking about getting certified, it's from a more general marketing angle. So either Samalid's team or my team can chat with you about ways to incorporate your diverse ownership, whether it's women-owned or otherwise, into your marketing materials. And if you're not interested in the world of contracts, that's probably the way you want to go. And so we can certainly help you with that, and our services are free to help you navigate that. When it comes to contracting, that's when these different kinds of certifications are helpful. So I just put a couple of them in the chat to clarify what we're talking about. But I do think that if you have Samalid's article open, especially with these acronyms, it's going to be a helpful way to frame this conversation. So I'm going to pull us back a little bit to this agenda here before we answer too many more questions, but I do want to summarize what we've chatted about so far, which is defining certification and its primary benefit. It is a way to help possibly gain an advantage on contracting. We've got a couple of disclaimers there that we'll get to. Can also be helpful in the world of networking to an extent. We've also talked about how different types of certification. So whether you're woman-owned, if you're owned by a member of the BIPOC community, someone with a disability, there are going to be different certifications that are relevant in different areas. You got the public sector bucket and you got the private sector bucket. So think about whether or not you're looking to do contracting work. If so, where do you see yourself doing business? Is it with the government? Is it with the private sector? Is it with both? And Samalids and my teams can help you to navigate that question as well. What I'd like to cover is how to know whether you're ready for certification. Then we can chat about where to go for help. And then we can circle back and I think be in a good spot to answer some of these questions. So I would like to pose a few thoughts as far as how to know whether you're ready for certification. And Samalid, I would love if you would add anything that I'm missing. And Lisa, of course, the invitation is open to you to hop in anytime as well. I find that a lot of times folks are not, especially when I start chatting about certification and say, well, if you've got something that is available for contracting, that's a great opportunity. A lot of times folks have the reasonable counter question, which is, well, how do I know if I've got something worth contracting? And to me, that's part of whether or not you're ready for certification, right? This is a growth strategy for your business. You can get a general sense of what types of contracts are out there, whether it's via the Combis link that I just stuck in the chat. There's a very similar process available from SBA that you can see available federal level contracts that can give you a sense. In general, the world of contracting is really large. I know of someone who cuts hair. She got a contract with the Department of Defense in New Hampshire. She goes around and cuts everybody's hair on an Air Force base. So chances are you probably have something at some point that you can take advantage of the contracting. Question is, do you want that? And are you ready for it? So when it comes to that question of how do you know whether you're even ready to have this conversation, my first thought is have at least 2 years of business under your belts. And by business, I don't mean just registering the business, that's part of it, but I also mean making sales. As any startup knows, there's a ramp up process when you just figure out how to run your business really well. And so I encourage you to get through that before you start talking about certification. Smalley, what else do you think is on that checklist?
Yeah, I did put a few comments in the chat as well. I was seeing what folks were asking, and getting a certification should be part of your marketing and sales strategy, as you mentioned, that growth strategy. And so I always advise folks too that when you're analyzing whether or not a certification makes sense for you, it's what you said, Michelle. You're right on the money. Is that if you have a particular product or service, you have to know what your capacity is to be able to provide that product or service at a larger scale. Because more often than not, when you're dealing with large companies or institutions, they're going to want whatever it is that you offer at a large scale. For example, we had a bakery here in town who got a certification and got a really nice contract with a local hospital. So the local hospital says, great, you're going to provide our baked goods. Great. So we need 3,000 muffins in 2 days. And then that will be a weekly order. And the bakery went like, what? We do not have the capacity to offer 3,000 muffins. Couple of things happened there. Number one, quantity was not, apparently was not explained in the contract for that particular bakery. So when you are negotiating a contract with your client, make sure you clearly understand what their needs are in terms of quantity and scale. And so they were, of course, unable to provide those 3,000 muffins in less than 2 days. And so they couldn't, they had to let go of that contract, and the hospital ended up going with another bakery, larger bakery that was in the area that was able to provide their products and services. But the reason why the hospital had picked that bakery in the first place is because of what I said before, because many of the larger businesses and institutions are looking to diversify their supplier chain, and they want to be sure too that they're inclusive of the businesses, the smaller businesses in the community, and given an opportunity to be able to take advantage of those contracts and increase their economic prosperity. So that's, I just wanted to share that with you.
That is such an important example. And it does happen a lot. And sometimes folks don't, they can go through all the work of getting certified and it doesn't necessarily help because you're not actually ready to execute on a contract. It's similar for making cookies as it is if you have scarves that you want Target to pick up. You have to have the requisite money in the bank and the bandwidth to be able to execute on these contracts. Which, by the way, is a helpful note about certification when you're considering whether or not it's right for you. Think about all of the things that someone with a contract is going to look at. Say you have a cleaning company. CVS comes, they open this big office building near you. They're likely going to put out a request for proposal so that all cleaning companies can say, here's why I should be the one that comes in and cleans your offices every night. Here's my price point. Here's my history of service. Here's how you can know. The person then who's working for CVS that's going to decide who to hire, they're going to look at a couple of things. They're going to want to know exactly what Samala just said. What is the likelihood that you're going to be able to execute on this contract really well? Also, what's your price? So it can be an advantage to you with getting a contract to have a diverse owned certification. It is not a guarantee of business at all because they're looking at multiple things. And it's also not a requirement, especially on the public sector side. Forgive me, after lunch, I'm falling apart. On the public sector side, most of these RFPs are public, right? I just stuck one link in the chat. So you don't necessarily have to be certified, but it can give you an advantage if you want to do it. So I think the moral of the story on how to know if you're ready for certification, do you have something that you want to sell to either the public or private sector that you feel can sell? Do you have the capacity to act on a large order with a short time of notice? Do you have your business model down pat, including a strategy for regularly reviewing your financials and having some cash flow that you can put money up front to make a project happen before you get paid by the person who put it out there? If you check all those boxes, gravy, let's start chatting certification. If you don't, let's chat about working on your business model. And that's where CWE, SCORE, the Small Business Development Center, everybody in the video that we showed you at the beginning can help you get to a point where you're really ready to assess whether or not certification is right for you.
Okay. I'd like to add something there,
ahead.
Michelle, as well. Oh, Lisa, go ahead.
Oh, Michelle, I just wanted to say, and also just because you get certified doesn't guarantee that people are going to come knocking at your door. You have to network. You have to market yourself. It is critical. Oftentimes people think, well, I'm certified. Where are all the contracts? Why aren't they coming in? I mean, from a federal standpoint, the federal government is the largest buyer of goods and services. We are mandated 23% of everything that the federal government purchases has to be from small business. And we are given goals. 5% has to go to women owned. However, just because you go through the certification process doesn't mean that all these orders are going to start coming in. You have to be assertive. You have to go out there and network. You have to market yourself. Work with our resource partners. Michelle and Samala are fantastic. And just be, make it look and see what these folks are looking for, what these prime agencies are looking for and companies, and see what niche you might be able to fill. But it's really critical that you have to work with the certification. It's not automatic.
So glad you mentioned that. And to me, that's another really great reason to be operating for a couple of years before you start working on it. There's a point in many businesses' lives, so to speak, where the owner is able to work on the business rather than in the business. That's a key capacity that you'll want to make sure that you as an owner have to really be able to take advantage of a certification if you do get one, to be able to do the work that Lisa was just saying.
And Michelle, I wanted to address a few of the questions in the chat.
Please.
And actually, maybe you would know the answer to this one. I know that, so people are asking, what does it cost to get certified? All right, so there's for federal and state certifications, you don't have to pay any type of application fee. The cost to you is really your time, the time that you're investing in getting all the paperwork done, in going to pre-certification workshops to be able to actually apply. That's in the case with the state certifications. You got to go to the Office Supply Diversity, the OSD, and that's a link that's included in the article. And sign up for a pre-certification workshop before you actually can apply. That's for the state certification. There's also federal certifications, and that's all. There's no charge to you for those. However, if you're looking for a private industry certification that's through a third party, basically you want to be able to do business with Walgreens or, the Walmart or whatever, so a private type of group, large corporations, and you want that third party certification. Those third party certification providers do have fees associated with the application, as well as very often annual membership fees. And you might ask, but why? The reason is because of what Lisa just talked about and Michelle talked about with the networking. Very often these third party providers have trade shows. They have newsletters. They offer a variety of ways to help you connect with procurement officers, with the buyers of those companies, so that they know that you exist, because that's part of the challenge, right? How do you promote that you are now a woman business enterprise? So they're solving that problem by doing all of those events and putting a great website and having a listing of all of the organizations that are currently certified, so that buyers can find you and you can network directly with them. So Michelle, would you like to go through some of the examples of fees that are associated with some of those third-party certification providers?
Absolutely. And I'll stick a couple links in the chat. I put one in there that has a link to WeBanks. I would love, before I get into what those fees are, to just add to Samalad's point about things on the public sector side. Those certifications, they take time, but they are free. However, a common problem that we see happening are folks that try to convince you that you do need to pay a fee. So just keep that in mind, that if you're applying for something on the public sector side, it should not cost you money. If you're not sure whether something you're getting is legitimate or not, please do reach out to Samalad, to me, to Lisa. We can help do a sanity check to see if there may be some spam going on. On the private sector side, yeah, there is a fee, and it's a non-refundable annual application fee, which is, as a sidebar, yet another reason to wait till you're a bit more in business, because it can feel hefty, especially for early stage startups. For WeBank, which is the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, you don't have to memorize that. Don't worry. I stuck the link in the chat earlier. I'll put it right back in there, which certifies women-owned businesses and corporations that have committed to do a certain percentage of their business with women-owned firms. That has an annual fee, and it's tiered based on how much revenue you have. Anyone that is below $1 million in annual revenues, your annual fee is $350. So, and I'm trying to think, our sibling organization, the Greater New England Minority Supplier Diversity Council, which falls in the public sector bucket, but they certify minority-run firms. Their fees are right around the same, but I'm going to look that up and I'm going to stick the link in the chat so that you have it. It is hyperlinked in that acronym document that you'll see afterwards as well, but I'll put that in there as far as the fees. I'm just going to look it up now before I forget. Okay, is there another question in the chat that we'd like to get to now?
Right, let's see. Okay, so someone said WMBE, MBE, no money, but cost time. And so not only cost time sometimes when absolutely costs time when you are applying for any of these certifications. One thing, a couple of things, couple of notes. Number one, because this is getting a certification is got to be part of your marketing and sales strategy to grow your business and grow your clients, right? You will want to set aside some type of budget for travel, for marketing materials, because you're networking with these people right now in the middle of the pandemic. Of course, everything is virtual, so it's right now it's very cheap to network with people. But if you have marketing materials, a brochure, pens, paper, whatever it is that you want to share with the potential clients to make sure that they get the message of remember who you are and so on. You will want to set aside a budget to create those materials, okay? And then once we get out of this pandemic and there's the trade shows, in-person trade shows, then you will want to set aside some travel time, money, and funds for travel, especially for those of you who might be in Western Mass. A lot of the events that WeBank hosts is usually in Worcester or Boston.
What I think would be
travel out there
helpful,
to
and I'm
Western
trying
Mass.
to find a picture of this, but a lot of questions are centering around some of the different types of certifications that are out there. So I just want to kind of recap, and I'll stick it in the chat in a minute. We've got private sector certifications and public sector certifications. Depends on who you want to do business with. On the public sector side, the different levels of government all have federally required mandates for a certain percentage of their business that they're going to do with certified businesses that are a member of a historically disadvantaged population. So when you're looking at some of the questions for responses, the woman-owned certification on the federal level is WOSB, Women-Owned Small Business. On the state level, those are handled through the Office of Supplier Diversity for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Many cities and towns also have their own certification programs for doing business with them. On the private sector side, we're talking about the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. So that is WBENC. I'll stick all that in the chat in 1 minute. There is a question in the chat that I'd like to pass to Lisa if you're around. Someone mentioned that they they applied for WOSB in November of 2020, which for those of you listening, women-owned small business, that's on the federal side, SBA. That's why I'm sticking this question over to Lisa. And they're wondering how long it might take to get a certificate if they applied in November.
It usually typically takes about 60 days. However, if they haven't heard anything, it could be that there's something with the application. There is a help desk there. There's a help button. I would suggest going in and just sending an email stating just that they did apply in November and they just wanted to get an update on their application. And if they're not able to get anywhere with that, please feel free to follow up with me offline and we'll try to help any way that we can.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm seeing a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to take one moment to type up the buckets and the types of women-owned certifications that fall under them really quickly, and then we will answer those.
And in the meantime, I did put on the chat as well, the Procurement Technical Assistance Program does offer free and confidential business advice, and it is under the umbrella of the Small Business Development Center. They typically work with businesses who have been in business for 2 or more years, but that doesn't mean that you can get your certification if you're a startup. You can, if you're brand new, you can get a certification. What happens is sometimes when you're looking to do business with government, specific government agencies will require that you have at least 2 years in business. And I know that's true for federal and state contracts. And also it's to your advantage. I also saw someone ask about insurance. And on insurance, you absolutely want to have some type of insurance. I mean, it's definitely fundamentals of owning a successful business 101. You want to have, whether it is commercial liability insurance, property insurance, malpractice insurance, whichever applies to your type of business, you want to be insured. Certain agencies will ask you for a particular threshold or particular level of insurance. Some people have 2 million, some people have 4 million, whatever it is, and even also bonds. Lisa, are you at all familiar with the bonds and how that works?
A little bit, but certainly there's more information on our website and they can
Right.
find out about it. One thing I wanted to mention, Samala and Michelle, is, some folks may not be ready for contracting right away to take on a whole contract, but the certification could also help them by perhaps getting a subcontract where you don't do one piece, Michelle, you do one piece, Samala, and I do a piece, and it helps, get experience and strengthen and someday get our own contract that we can fulfill on our own.
That is an excellent point. Subcontracting is another really great option. If you've got some capability to do work that maybe not as big as a job might involve. We've been seeing a lot of that lately with a new ballpark in Worcester. We've got large women-owned companies that are subcontracting with smaller women-owned companies to get things like cleaning done. So that's really
awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really, really cool to see. So,
and Michelle, I wanted to share on behalf of Lisa the SBA website. Okay, SBA website does have, so you go to sba.gov, okay, sba.gov, and you go to federal contracting. You can go down here to it says contracting guide, and there's a ton of information here about federal contracting, basic requirements, how to win contracts, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, if you need more guidance, it's great to reach out to the PTAC or to Michelle or myself so we can send you in the right direction.
Which actually might be a nice, coming back to our, kind of a draft agenda before we take the rest of the questions. I just stuck in the chat an overview of the different types of certifications that are at those different buckets. So primary benefit is contracting or subcontracting. There's a little bit of network involved there too. We talked a little bit about how to know whether your business is ready for certification. Would love to make sure you know what's out there to help you if you do want to pursue certification. The PTAC is a powerhouse. They're phenomenal. They are affiliated with the MSBDC and they're a free resource. Just as Samal said, if you're interested in government level contracts, federal, state, municipal, they do also know a dangerous amount about the private sector side too. So they're just great allies to have in your pocket. You do have to request counseling. And again, as Samal said, they do oftentimes require you to have been in business for a couple of years because as Lisa, Samal, and I have been beating the drum, this is a growth strategy. This is not necessarily the right option for early stage businesses. So do reach out to them. If you have questions on the private sector side, we can help. Our WeBank team with CWE does a free monthly webinar that goes over the world of certifications, what's there, what are all those different acronyms. They're not allowed to advise you on your application itself, but if you've got a general question of what a particular document needs, it means that they're asking for, they can certainly help. The list of required documents are online. The WOSB application has it. I'll stick in the link for the Center for Women Enterprises in one moment here, but you can see all of the required paperwork. And if you're not sure what something is, we're more than happy to help you know where you might find it or what that is. We just can't advise you on what you should or shouldn't say on particular parts of your application. And I believe the PTAC is the same. Samala, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right.
So do reach out.
They do help with responding to requests for proposals. Actually, though,
nice.
They do help with that. So that if someone is responding to a bid, they do help review that and make sure that you've responded to all of the questions on the bid, so that you have the best chance of getting that contract. And I did see a question too about how long it takes to get a certification. I would say, Michelle, I'll let you answer that question for the private side, but on the public side for a state or federal certification, I have heard, depending on how busy they are, it could take 3 to 4 months, from the point that you've submitted a complete application. So it might feel like a long time because when you first started, you're doing a pre-certification workshop. Then you are going through this checklist of documents that you got to pull together about your company. And if if you are an LLC or an S Corp, C Corp corporation, you gotta make sure you have all of your articles of incorporation, your shareholder notes, all of the information that has to do with your corporation, with forming that corporation, even if you're a one-member LLC, even if you're a one-member S Corp. And so you have to, so it takes you some time to put together all that paperwork. Then you submit your application. There's a person, a representative that receives it, and they have a list of people that they have to go and interview. So you might be in a queue for a little while they get to you. And if there's any questions on your application, they're going to get back to you on that and make sure you complete your application. So I've heard anywhere from 3 to 5 months on the public side of things, meaning federal and state certification. Certainly, I've heard of people that done it in 1 month, in 30 days. They're very quick, especially the sole proprietors or the one-member LLCs. They don't have a lot of paperwork to submit. And just for some reason, the timing was really fast.
It's similar on the private sector side, at least through WeBank. I can't speak to the Greater New England Minority Supplier Diversity Council, our sibling organization. But on the private sector side, it's really similar as a general rule, anywhere from 90 to possibly 120 days. And what's included in some of that is a little bit of back and forth, right? Sometimes they get a document that's partially responded to, or they need a little bit more information, and then they have to arrange time to do the interview that we talked about. So it can take a minute. What is a helpful little tidbit, though, is that a lot of the information that is requested, the paperwork that's requested, is very similar across the different types of certifications. So while you probably do, if you want to ultimately get involved on the public and the private sector side, you probably do ultimately need to get multiple certifications. A lot of the process will feel similar, but we're all out there to help you too. You just want to make sure, it brings us back to our earlier point, before you start applying for certification, make sure that you have the time to work on your business, not just in it, because it will take some time to get the certification in the first place. And then to, I think both Lisa and Samala's points, to really leverage that certification once you get it. So there is a really good question in the chat that has to do with citizenship. Most of the I'll defer to Samala and Lisa on the public sector side. On the private sector side, the person or people that have at least 51% ownership in the company need to be American, need to at least have legal permanent resident status or be American citizens in order to get the certification. And it is 51%, not 50. And that's not just about the citizenship question. That's also about who is the member of the historically disadvantaged population, right? A business that's owned 50-50 by either a brother and sister team or a husband-wife team would not be eligible for a women-owned certification. It has to be at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled by the member of the historically disadvantaged population they are talking about.
Right, that is correct. And so there is another certification that I wanted to make sure people were aware of, and it is listed in the article, but it's the LGBT certification for lesbian, gay, bi and transsexual. And it is offered by I believe is the chamber, the U.S. Chamber. Let me just find it real quick in the, hold on. Okay, it's called the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. So for those of you who might be eligible for that certification, I'm putting the link on the chat as well. And because we want to be inclusive, right? So most of the time we always talk about women-owned, veteran-owned, minority-owned, certifications, but there's also certifications for those group of folks as well.
That is an excellent point, Samala. Thank you. Also for Asian Americans, Native Americans, there are a lot of really great organizations that are operating in the space to help make these jobs, these contracts more available to folks. Right. Which actually kind of brings me to, I see a comment in the chat about it, and it's frustrating that women and minority business owners have to do so much more work to get the government contracts. I hear you. The certification process is not an easy one. Although I do just want to take the opportunity to remind you, it's not to negate that point, but it is an important reminder that many contracts do not require a certification for you to bid on them. If it's required, it'll say so, right? In that RFP, it will say this is only for certified businesses of one or more types of businesses. Typically, especially on the public sector side, these RFPs are public and it's not required to be certified to bid on them. So just keep that in mind.
There is a certification, Lisa. You have through the SBA, the 8A Business Development Program.
Yes.
Do you want to go through this real quick? I'll scroll up and down as needed.
Sure. Hold on, 'cause something else is popping on my screen here. So the 8A Business Development Program was put in place to help socially and economically disadvantaged businesses get a piece of the pie. It's a 9-year program, and it's to help those, to make sure that they're competitive and they can get some of those contracts. So if you meet the criteria, which is being a member of the minority groups that are listed, or you can prove again that you've been socially or economically disadvantaged, you can enter the program. The business has to be at least 51% owned and controlled, as stated earlier, by a U.S. citizen who's socially, economically disadvantaged. There is a requirement with the net worth where it has to be $750,000 or less, and an adjusted gross income of $350,000 or less. So it's a great opportunity for those of you who are interested. We do have webinars that we are conducting. You can visit our SBA website at sba.gov/MA, where the webinars are listed. And we do hold webinars on the 8A program, so you can learn about the benefits, how it works, and determine whether this is something that you think will work for you and your business.
Excellent. I
am just answering one question.
Sure, I'll put the link to that page in the chat.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Small.
I will put the link to the page I was showing on the chat so people can get to it.
So I think one thing, we want to stress is there's a lot of different certifications and contracting opportunities. You can do business with your local city or town. You can do business with the state of Massachusetts. You can do business with the federal government, or you can do business with the Fortune 500 companies. I think you really should take a step back, look at what your business is, what your product or service, get together with our resource partners, get together with Michelle and Samalit, and really take a good look to see. It takes a lot of work. I'm not going to deny that, but make sure that this is going to be beneficial for you and your business to help you grow. And if so, then you can take the next steps and tap into all these resources. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot in terms of the federal government. There's a lot of opportunities, but you have to assess whether it's something that is for you and it can help your business grow. So before you take the time is money, right? Make sure that you get together with Michelle and Samalit and just kind of give your business a checkup, so to speak. And as you move forward on growth strategies, whether this is the way to go.
I see another really good question from Camilla in the chat about, maybe you want to say that you're women-owned certified, but it's really not about contracting, whether on the government or the private sector side. And do clarify if I'm misreading your question. So curious as to whether there might be a benefit to getting certified in that case. My gut, and I'm really interested in Samal and Lisa's perspective here, my gut is that if you're not looking at the world of contracting right now, then no, it might not be the right fit for you to get certified. There's nothing that says that you can't celebrate your diversity in your marketing materials. If it's women-owned, if it's LGBTQ owned, if it's any diversity that you represent, especially if it's multiple levels of diversity, right? Fantastic. Incorporate in your marketing materials. And we can chat with you about how to do that. That might be less time and money intensive, especially if you don't want to use it for contracting opportunities. Samal and Lisa, what do you think?
That's a great point. That's a great point, Michelle. So you can say we're women-owned. We're a small business, women-owned business. We can say we're a minority-owned business. What you can't say is that you're women-owned certified, so you can't say that you have a certification if you don't have it, but you can share, that you are diverse, that the ownership of your company is diverse, that you talk about your inclusiveness practices when you're hiring people, and use that in your marketing materials to get noticed and differentiate yourself from your competitors. Absolutely.
Yeah, no using the trademarked logos or anything, but yeah, put it out there, And Camilla is curious also if there are any women's coalitions by sectors that take on larger projects together. Again, Lisa and Smollett, I don't know if you are aware of any. At CWE, we have informal groups on LinkedIn and Facebook that folks can join and network with each other. Otherwise, I know many industry associations are very active. There are Women in Construction in Boston, for example, that are commonly in touch with each other. Smollett and Lisa, are you familiar with any other non-certification related coalitions?
Yes, absolutely. Here in Western Mass, we have the Women Business Owners Alliance.
Right.
And I'm going to flash them real quickly on the screen. This is a really great group of women business owners here in the Valley. And I believe their membership is very affordable, and they always have great training and great peer-to-peer support for women-owned businesses here in Western Mass.
I like their name.
Mhm.
I'm so glad you remember. They're wonderful. They have a wonderful newsletter too that I really enjoy.
There are a number of women's organizations. You got the North Shore Women in Business, South Shore Women in Business. There's a lot of great organizations out there. And even sometimes the chambers have a women's group within the chamber. So that's something else that you can explore for networking opportunities.
I would almost just Google Women in Business, Massachusetts, or Massachusetts Women in Business, and you probably come up with a list of websites of people. But you can also check with your local chambers of commerce. Local chambers of commerce usually have, I don't know if they have a listing of those women in business type of groups, but they might be, if you go to any of their networking events, you might end up networking with other women who are in business and who might be part of these other groups and can invite you to them. And one more important one that I would be, it would be bad if I missed that is the BNI, Business Network International. I am part of that group, and so there are BNI chapters all over Massachusetts. Those chapters usually allow you to visit them for free at least twice before you're asked to join. So that's a great opportunity. It really forces you to have your 60-second presentation spiel up and running. And right now, because we're in the middle of the pandemic, all of their meetings are being held virtually. So if you go to the BNI New England page and find out the chapter closest to you, you can either reach out to a member there for them to invite you, or you can invite yourself and just attend their meeting. So that's a really good resource that I recommend to a lot of the businesses that I work with when they're starting, when they're looking for clients. They're desperate to get referrals. So I say, you got to network, and here's the places where you can go, and you can go to some of those meetings for free at the beginning, at least 2 times each chapter you can visit.
So we're about at the end of our time. So we will take the list of questions from the chat, and we'll put together responses to anything that we haven't done yet, and we'll send it out to you as soon as we can. So Smollett kindly has taken the lead on editing the recording so that you don't hear all of our awkward pauses and all those little things. So as soon as that's ready, we will send the recording to folks who attended today. And also that acronym list, that link, I'm going to put it in eCenter Direct, which is where you all signed up today, but it's also in the chat. Smollett's article is phenomenal for a lot of these questions, especially when it gets outside of just women-owned certification. And I think it was Gloria that had a question about other types of disadvantaged populations that could become certified. There's a lot of discussion of that in Smollett's article. So maybe it's just time for closing thoughts. My takeaways that I hope folks learn here is that whatever stage of business you're in, we can help. If you're thinking that, hey, I don't know if certification's right for me still, totally fine. That's what Smollett and I are here for. Same thing with Lisa. Reach out to us. We can have this conversation more in depth. But do just make sure that your business is up and running and you've got the business model functioning well before you go for a certification. Smollett, Lisa, what are your concluding thoughts for our friends today?
You want to go first, Lisa?
Sure. Well, I agree with you, Michelle. I think you have to be prepared and tap into the resources that can help you. Connect with Michelle and Smollett, as I stated. Do a checkup on your business and see if this is something that can help your business grow. Also, please let us know. Tap into all the other SBA resources. We want you to know that you're not alone. We know it's difficult out there. So please let us know if we can be of any help to you. And thank all of you for being here today. And don't forget, if you are ready, join us in 2 weeks.
Awesome. I don't have much more to add. This has been great. I'm so glad we were able to do this today. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversational presentation. And again, just remember, just plan ahead. Make sure you have your numbers, exactly where your capacity is to take in more work. And we're here to help you.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.